Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're diving into something pretty cool, a totally new way to look at our dogs. I mean, think about it. We track their weight, their food, their walks, but what if we could actually get a read on their psychological well-being? What if we could measure their freedom?
So I've got a question for you, and I want you to really think about it. Is your dog truly free? And no, I don't just mean they have a backyard to run around in. I'm talking about something much deeper. The freedom to actually, be a dog. And it turns out this might be one of the most important and most overlooked parts of their happiness.
And that brings us to this big idea, behavioral freedom. Now, this isn't about letting your dog run wild. It's actually the opposite. It's about their ability to make choices, to explore, to follow their instincts, but all inside a safe and predictable world that we provide for them.
So here's our game plan for today. First, we'll look at this invisible metric. Then we'll cover why freedom is so important in the first place. After that, we'll decode the tool used to measure it, see how to turn that info into real action, and finally, wrap up with a whole new perspective on our dogs.
All right, let's jump right into section 1, the invisible metric. So how on earth do you measure something like freedom? How do you put a number on what's essentially a state of being?
Well, the answer comes in this new framework called the ILC. That stands for Índice de Liberdade Conductual, or in English, the Canine Behavioral Freedom Index. It was developed by a canine behavior consultant named Pablo Herrera, and it's really one of the very first attempts to create a practical tool that can quantify this super important but usually intangible part of a dog's life.
Okay, so that leads us to the big question, right? Why should we even care about this? Well, it turns out this isn't just some feel-good idea. It's actually backed by the science of what's called canine agency. You see, for a dog, having the ability to make choices isn't a luxury, it's a fundamental psychological need. We've got loads of research showing that when animals have more control over their environment, their levels of the stress hormone cortisol actually go down. They show fewer of those repetitive, compulsive behaviors, and they're just tougher when faced with stress. They play more, they explore more, and they're generally healthier both physically and mentally. This is the science that really sparked the idea for the index.
So, the million-dollar question is, how does the ILC actually do this? How does it measure something that feels so abstract? Let's pop the hood and take a look at how this index is put together.
The ILC basically breaks freedom down into 5 key areas, or domains. And you can see they're not all weighted equally. The 2 biggest pieces of the pie, making up half the score, are freedom itself, like the raw ability to make choices, and enrichment, which is all about mental stimulation. So let's quickly unpack what each of these really means.
So what are these domains really asking? Freedom is pretty simple. Can your dog make choices during their day? Enrichment asks, is their brain getting a workout? Functional effectiveness is a big one. Are we actually understanding why our dogs do what they do? Restrictions looks at any physical or medical things holding them back. And finally, external control gauges how predictable and safe their world feels to them. These are the building blocks of the final score.
And all of that information gets crunched into a simple percentage score. It takes all that complexity and gives you a really clear snapshot, almost like a report card that tells you exactly where your dog's well-being stands, from excellent all the way down to very poor.
But here's the most important part. This isn't just about getting a grade. The whole point of the ILC is to be a roadmap. It's about taking that number and turning it into real, meaningful action. And what's amazing is that tiny changes can have absolutely massive results.
Just look at this case. The intervention was ridiculously simple. Just offer the dog a choice between 2 different toys every morning. That's it. And the result? A 40% drop in destructive behaviors. Why? Because that one tiny moment of choice gave the dog a feeling of control over its own day. Or how about this one? An owner created a simple visual routine. Every time they were about to leave, they'd pick up their keys and a specific tote bag. That's all. This tiny bit of predictability helped reduce the dog's separation anxiety by a whopping 60%. It just goes to show how much a predictable world can calm a dog's nervous system. It's so powerful.
So if you wanted to try this yourself, here's how it would work. It's a pretty straightforward 4-step loop. You start with an initial evaluation to get your baseline score. Then, based on where the weak spots are, you bring in some small, targeted changes, those micro-interventions. After a while, you reevaluate to see if the score is improved. And finally, you just keep up what's working. It's this constant cycle of listening, adapting, and improving.
And all of this brings us to our final section, which is really about a new perspective.
Because the ILC isn't just a tool for one dog at a time. It really represents a bigger shift in how we think about the well-being of all our dogs.
Because at the end of the day, the goal is to get past just managing so-called bad behaviors. It's about shifting our mindset toward creating an environment where our dogs can actually flourish. We can stop asking, how do I make my dog stop chewing the furniture, and start asking, what does my dog need from me to truly thrive?
Now, it is really important to be clear here. The ILC is a promising new framework, but it's still very much in its early days. It's a tool developed by a consultant, not a large research institution, and it has not been through academic peer review yet. For it to become a truly validated scientific instrument, it needs to go through some serious next steps. It has to be tested across lots of different dog populations, studied over the long term, and, this is a big one, it needs to be integrated with actual physiological data, like measuring cortisol levels, to see if the scores really do match up with stress in the body. That's the journey from a great idea to proven science.
So I want to leave you with this thought, which I think sums it all up perfectly. It's not just about having a dog that behaves well. It's about having a dog that can be free to be a dog. The next time you look at your dog, just ask yourself, what's one small choice, one tiny piece of freedom that I can give them today?